All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, March 5th.
12 are present, Your Honor.
All right, very good. We're all here, obviously have a quorum. Let's now please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, tonight, we as a city council gather to lift the lives of those who call Green Bay home. We ask for your help in making decisions to help our fellow neighbors. We pray for wisdom, for patience, and for compassion as we work together to build a better community. We know there are a lot of those who go without proper shelter, without adequate employment, and without hope. Let's us, as city leaders, work together, come together to offer a community of hope and prosperity. By having faith in each other and having a faith in you, we can build such a community. Bless all those who work to make Green Bay a special place. And in this month of March, we ask your special blessing on the Irish and all of us who wish we were. As always, we ask you to watch over all our military personnel, especially those serving on the USS Green Bay. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 18th meeting. We have a motion by Alderman Nicholson, and that was seconded by Alderman Scannell to approve the minutes for the meeting held on February 18th. Anything here you want to change? Any corrections? Seeing no lights, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. I'll now look for a motion to approve the agenda. The motion to approve the agenda by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderperson Dorff. Alderman Scannell, I know you asked that we take the report of number 3 finance and so we'll take those two items together. They're both on the elevator, parks and finance. So we'll just make that notation on the agenda. So anything else? With that notation, all in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays, ayes have it, and the agenda's been approved.
Report by the mayor.
Just 3 things. One is I want to just thank this community and all of you. We had the CP Telethon this weekend, right? And that's been going on for I don't know how many years, but many of us have been working that for many, many years. And just thanks for calling in. That can be tough, when your phone's not ringing. So that's why I was emailing you and hounding you. And thank you for calling and making your pledges. And I know they hit their goal, and it was a successful weekend. Secondly, I just want to mention, there's so much going on with conferences and events this week in Green Bay, but the U.S. Champion Cheese Contest is out at Lambeau, and that is a fun event. There are cheesemakers from all over who have the latest and greatest and the best cheeses, and you get samples and you get to vote, and it's just nice as an alderperson, or as the mayor to just go out and welcome them. They're here for 4 days, and they come every couple of years. They're excited to be here, and I'm very excited that they're here. And then just lastly, Sunday, March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, and of course we'll have an event here where we meet downtown at the city deck, at the Shopko Landing at 9 o'clock, and you have an event, have kind of a march, and end up at St. Brendan's. So I just encourage you to bring the kids and friends and family down there, March 17th. And that would conclude my report.
We're on to announcements.
Okay. I'm going to begin with Alderperson Barb Dorff.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a clarification on the agenda. It would be item 5, an improvement in services, not parks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just want to make
Okay,
sure
we'll
that
take
we
that up
do it
together.
right. Okay?
All right, thank you. Sorry about
Thanks.
that. Alderperson LaFave, announcements?
Yes, I just wanted to bring up, as you mentioned, the National Cheese Conference at Lambeau. I just wanted to do a little education. There was a study done by, I can't remember if it was Minnesota or Madison. They did a study on why our cheddar cheese wins the national competition. And the reason is because of the grass that we grow here in Wisconsin. Only grows in Wisconsin. It's cold weather grass. And if we lose our dairies that actually feed pasture on this grass, then we're going to lose that competition. This is something big, I think. We should be aware of this. So all the mega farms, we have to watch that issue big time. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you.
That's right. You like your cheese? Get your cheese.
Alderman Scandal, announcements?
Yep. It's that time of year again, St. Baldrick's, just around the corner. My wife can't wait. I'm a
Neither
little-
can the mayor.
Yeah. I know it's a very hairy subject. I'm about to lose it, and I would appreciate all my fellow alders digging just a little deeply into their pockets and sharing to help the cause for Children's Cancer Foundation. Please. Thank you. Bye.
Did we give it to you? Did they?
Okay, Chris, do you have any announcements?
I do. I just wanted to let everyone know that in-person absentee voting starts Tuesday, March 12th in the clerk's office.
All right, let's continue.
We're on to public hearings. Resolution vacating a public service way located near North Adams Street and Northland Avenue. The second one, General Ordinance Number 11-19, an ordinance amending Green Bay Municipal Code Section 13-215, 13-1503 1A, 13-1507 1B7A, 13-1507 1B7B, and 13-1514 related to the Landmarks Commission. And number 3 is zoning ordinance number 1-19, an ordinance amending and superseding zoning ordinance 12-18, plan unit development located in the 200 block of North Van Buren Street.
All right, thank you. So is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak on any of these three specific items that the clerk just stated? The resolution of North Adams, the General Ordinance 11-19, or General Ordinance 1-19? Anyone wishing to speak to one of those three things? Anyone wishing to be heard? Then we'll let the record show no one came forward.
We're on to ordinances, second reading for adoption. You may, under suspension of the rules, take up items 1 through 12 with a roll call vote.
Suspend.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scandal, second by Alderperson Kathy LaFave to suspend the rules for that purpose. All in favor of suspension, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, the rules are suspended. Motion to adopt.
First reading, isn't it?
Ordinance is second reading for adoption. Motion to adopt by Alderman Stoyer, second by Alderperson Dorf. If you please use the board.
Sure.
Okay, finally, there it is. Here's up.
Yes, sir.
Just be recorded as abstaining from item 9.
Okay. All right, very good. And those pass unanimously, noting the abstention by Alderman Johnson on item 9.
We're on to resolutions. You may, under suspension of the rules, adopt resolutions 1 through 6 together with one roll call vote.
So motion to suspend by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Stevens, to suspend the rules for that purpose. All in favor of suspension, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, the rules are now suspended. Motion to adopt by Alderman Johnson, second by Alderperson Corpus Dax. This is item J in your report, resolutions 1 through 6.
It just says 6 and 5. They got those two switched. I don't know if it's just a typo.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even catch that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's just clerical.
I read that earlier. I think 6 is before 5.
Not get any lights. Yeah, let's do it.
My vote came up. Did yours?
Yeah.
Mr. Vanderleest, if you, You did. I see that now. All right. Thank you. And those pass unanimously.
We're on to report of the Protection and Policy Committee, February 25th, 2019.
All right, what are your wishes regarding the report of this committee's meeting? There's a motion by Alderman Scannell. Second by Alderman Galvin to approve the report of the Protection and Policy Committee for the meeting held on March 25th. Are there any items in this report you wish to handle separately?
Number one.
Number one?
Two.
And number two. Okay, hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Obviously, item three has been approved. Now, what are your wishes regarding item one?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve by Alderman Scannell. Second by Alderman Stevens. Alderman Scannell.
Yes, I would like to amend this to grant an extension. If we grant this license now, there's 60 days in which it needs to be, the license activated, or the business opened, and that'd make it at May 4th. The business isn't quite ready until June 30th, so I'm asking that we extend the period till June 30th of 2019 for them to get their license.
All right, so there's a motion and a second to amend this. Tell me, where do I write that? Like, to grant, you're on item one.
Yep.
To extend an available license, is that,
To grant and extend an available license? Grant and extend until June 30th, an available Class B license?
okay, fine. All right, so there's an amendment on the floor right now, and it's to amend item one, instead of to grant the available licenses, to grant and extend until June 1,
30th,
June 30th. Okay,
2019.
yeah, I got it. Okay,
Yep, they know, yep.
and if it's not ready by then, it goes back into the queue. Vanessa, our city attorney, would you like to speak on that?
We're just trying to figure out the logistics of it because of the timing of the way that it's structured for when they pay for it. So we don't normally do this. Usually they get it and then they come back for the extension. And so that's what we're trying to figure out right now is if it's gonna affect anything. So just give us a second.
Okay.
And we'll take the amendment, then we'll adopt it as amended, but let them figure that out. All right.
So the way it's structured right now, if we don't grant it, if we grant it now with the extension, then they will be paying, how much is it, like $10? It gets prorated, and so what we would be doing is holding up a license, not receiving any fee for this year, just a very small portion, because it would be like one day or a couple days that they would be getting on this license. And then next year is when their actual payment would start. So that's the issue we're running into.
Oh, I'm just,
Yeah. So what Chris is saying is that the renewal is going out this Friday. It's due April 15th. So that's why that timing's kind of messing up the proration of the fee. So I don't know what this council wants to do about that, or if anything.
well, I'm going on legal advice. I got an email from Kristen that this is what she asked me to do, so I don't know whatever advice you think we should follow.
Yeah, no, you can do it. There's no problem with doing this. I just don't know what you want to do as far as the fee goes. which is what the clerk handles.
Well, if they need to pay more, I don't think it's that substantial amount where it's gonna be an issue. I mean, they've, Kristen, spoke to them. I don't know if she mentioned the fee, but they're on board with this, so, charge it. You're talking, how much, $10?
Well, when I talked to Kristen, she talked about, we had talked to her about prorating from April 15th to June 30th for the original license. Because the renewal is due April 15th, so he should have an original. So if we, and I don't know if she told me she was gonna discuss that with him. I don't know if she did or not.
I don't know either.
So we would rather charge from April 15th to June 30th for the original license, because we went through this whole process with it, and then the renewal will go through the whole process again, so, you know, all admin time and everything.
So if he's willing, if he wants to extend it until June 30th with appropriate fees,
Sure.
I mean, you can
Prorated as of.
prorate it. I mean, we'll be fair, but,
Yeah. I'm sure, yeah.
all right. So that's the amendment that's on the floor right now. I don't see any lights speaking to this. So is a motion a second to amend item K? All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. That's amended now to be extended to January 1st, 30th with appropriate fees prorated. Now a motion to adopt is amended.
Motion to adopt as amended.
by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderperson Dorf. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Item K, item 1, under Report K, has been adopted as amended. What are your wishes regarding item 2?
Motion to approve.
So motion by Alderman Scannell. Second by Alderman Stoyer to approve item 2, which is the refer to staff request by Alderman Vanderleest. That was you, Alderman Johnson? Okay, hang on. Alderman Johnson?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I can do a motion to receive and place on file. Can that trump Alder Scannell's motion to approve? Is that the proper procedure?
No, look, you've got the floor. If you want to amend this to receive and place on file, go ahead.
Yeah,
and see
I
how
guess
it
that's
goes.
the motion. It's receive and place on file. I think I've heard enough from various constituents in my district. They do not support a fee to pay, I guess, when their vehicle's been stolen. They don't support paying a fee to recover their vehicle as a victim of a crime. And so I just don't feel the need to see this continue through the committee process. I would just move that we receive and place on file.
Second that.
All right, so there's a motion, second on the floor to amend item 2. Instead of refer to staff, the request is to receive and place on file. You see anything else on that, Alderman Johnson?
No.
Alderperson LaFave.
Can I ask the chief a question
Sure.
on this? Of the cars that were stolen with their keys in, how many were in their own driveway?
Of the 14 cars that were stolen so far this year, that's since January 1st, that had their keys in them, out of the 24 total that were stolen, 10 of them were stolen from a public area, 4 of them were stolen from the owner's private property.
Because I did have someone, I only had, I think, one person in my district contact me, and he was concerned about it because he said he has an infant and they like to warm the car up before they put the child in the car. Well, it's really cold, it's true. But I'm not in support of no fee. If you're, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say this, if you're dumb enough to leave your keys in your car, you're only asking for it. I mean, there are ways that you can go around that. You can have a starter that you can start your car and it's locked. No keys in it. And then you go and open up your car. I'm not in support of dropping the fees. This is causing the police a lot of extra time. And right now, they're down on officers. They don't have time to be spending on some things that people should be aware of that they shouldn't be doing. That's my opinion, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Well, it's about keys. It is.
Again, the motion on the floor is to receive and place this item on
Right,
file,
right,
so, all right.
It's not.
Alderperson Dorf, she can read.
So, thank you, Your Honor. I would be against receiving and placing on file. I too, I think some inaccurate information was conveyed at the last meeting, and car theft is not on the decline at all, and we're getting notices from the police department this week, like on a daily basis almost, that yet another car is stolen by a juvenile with the keys in the ignition. The ordinance never talked about private property, never did. You weren't going to get a fine if it wasn't on private property. You would get a fine if it was on public property. So you can still warm up a car for an infant in your driveway. So I'm going to be voting against receiving and place on file because I think that there should be some consequence attached to people choosing to leave their keys in the car for that little extra bit of warmth and then causing all kinds of concerns for the police. Thank
Point
you.
of clarification, Mayor?
Yeah,
We're actually discussing right now whether or not someone should pay towing fees related to the recovery of their vehicle, not the original ordinance that was
has
proposed to
nothing-
impose a fine if your vehicle's stolen. There's a difference there, and so I just want to be
Thank
sure
you.
that we're clear about that.
But
Thank you.
the motion on the floor
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
is to receive and place this item.
Can I ask one
Right.
more question?
So there's a lot in this item, but you're right, I mean,
You're right. Okay.
I don't know if that was,
So,
okay, go
so
ahead.
where is that other motion? What happened to that other motion? Where, I forgot where it
They
went.
got received and placed on file.
Oh, okay, so,
This is about, point of clarification.
It's just
This
about
is about
towing
a
fee?
stolen car, any stolen car. Any stolen car, you would pay a fee, the towing fee. That's what this motion is.
Okay.
That's what this communication is. It has nothing
never
to do with
mind.
dangling keys.
Never mind. I'll go back to, I will support the motion to receive this and place this on file.
Right.
Thank you.
Alderman Vanderleest.
I don't think that the fee that we're asking to recover the towing fee, I don't think it's out of line. The Green Bay Police Department is paying that fee, and the person had the car stolen, I think they'd be happy to pay the fee to get their car back. If you had your car stolen in Milwaukee or Chicago, you'd probably pay $300 to get your car back or more. You'd pay dearly. We're not charging the public anything. And all I'm asking is that the towing fee gets refurbished to the Green Bay Police Department for the cost of the towing, and you get your car back. I'm not asking for no fines or anything. I'm not supporting any fines. All I'm asking for is the small fee that's involved with towing. And that person that, if the Green Bay Police recover your car, you should be happy to pay your towing fee and get your car back. I've talked to a number of my constituents, and they said they don't support any fine, and they would be happy to pay for the towing fee to get their car back. It's quite stressful if your car is taken.
Yeah.
And this is my,
That was your motion.
yes, it was, thank you.
Alderman Alderman Johnson made a motion to receive and place it on file, so it wouldn't go anywhere. So that's what we're discussing, but you support,
I support.
It moving ahead.
In effect. no
Right.
Receive and place on file.
yes, sir. You guys want to clear your board, take your light off? Alderman Scannell?
Yes, I don't support, I support receiving and placing on file. When we had that original motion, communication just about keys being left in a car, getting the car running and stolen, to me, it made sense to have some sort of consequence, and we couldn't make that one a towing fee because you wouldn't be able to differentiate between those who had keys in their cars and those who didn't. It'd be too difficult to enforce. So the only way to do anything was to have a fine, which I thought, what's the difference between a fine or a towing fee? You're paying money either way. And the problem with that particular communication was that everyone thought we're hitting up the victim again. And certainly this does the same thing, only it even hits those who, through no fault of their own, have had their car stolen. They haven't left their keys in their car, but their car got stolen, and now we're going to make them a victim again by making them pay the toll fee. So I could support a fee for a small fee, a small fine, if we were talking about someone who left their keys in their car. but to just do it blanket for everybody and make those who have had their car stolen another victim to pay this. This is not something we've done in Green Bay. We're not Chicago. And to victimize the victim again, I'm just not favoring that. So I support receiving and placing on file. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Galvin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have some questions for the police chief. Chief, when a vehicle is recovered, if I remember correctly, the vehicle is normally towed to the police department for evidence processing?
Yes, sir. Generally, we try to get it back to the owner as quickly as possible. If there's a reason to process beside it being a straight stolen, we would bring it back to the shop for processing. That's about a $25 fee that heavy-duty tow charges us. If we can, though, and there's no other circumstances, we like to give it back to the owner in the field. If we can call the owner on the phone, have them come and pick it up, it'll save them the towing process, and the towing and any other charge after that.
So, I mean, when that vehicle is recovered at the scene and we want to process it for evidence, we're not going to have them go to the scene and pick, if we get the suspect in the car, there's no need to process it, right?
Correct.
So if we take it to the PD, we're paying about $25. They can't come to the PD and pick it up, so we have to get it out of there, so we pay to have it towed to heavy duty then?
It's my understanding that that is the case. Yeah, the $25. I think it's the 25 to get it to the station. We make every effort to try and get the
Right.
victim to bring it there unless it's not serviceable. Then heavy duty will take it and tow it. And if they impound it and it stays overnight, then of course they'll have to pay the storage fees.
So we pay the storage fee also?
I believe so.
Okay, and what is the storage fee currently?
I don't know exactly how much it is, sorry.
Do we get a better rate than the common citizen? Like $25 is pretty inexpensive for towing right
$25 is a
now.
very great rate to get for
I-
towing. My
I think the
experience
common
is it's
citizen
10
pays
times
quite a
that.
bit more, correct?
Right.
Okay. And then, so that, we're not incurring a ton of money.
We figured it was, in the total year, for all the vehicles that we towed, it's about $2,500 for
And that-
last year.
And that was what, about 80 to 100 cars?
About 100 cars, were about 100 cars were stolen. Some of those were released in the field, some of them were towed back for processing. So we figured the total cost for us last year was about $2,500.
Okay. And the city does charge, like, the fire department charges for rescue squad rides. But in that case, a lot of that is covered by insurance or Medicaid, Medicare, and that kind of thing. These kind of things aren't covered.
Correct, we don't get
As I
reimbursed.
understand it.
We, the city does not get reimbursed for that.
So for a true victim, I can't endorse either hitting them up with the towing and fees that are related to that. So I'm in favor of receiving and placing on file also. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to use the board on this. So the motion on the floor is to receive and place on file, therefore taking no action on item 2. So a yes vote receives and places item on file. A no vote, we would continue. Did we vote? Okay, and that vote passes on a vote of 9-3. So that item has been received and placed on file. And clerk will continue.
Report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell, seconded by Alderperson LaFave, to approve the report, item L, the report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operating licenses. Are there names in this report you wish to pull separately or abstain from? I see no lights. All in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it, and report L has been approved.
Report of the Improvement and Service Committee, February 27th, 2019.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell. Second by Alderperson Dorf, to approve report M, the report of the Improvement and Service Committee. That was for the meeting held on February 27th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? 4 and 5. Okay, hearing none others, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. All items under the report of Improvement Service Committee have been approved, with the exception of item 4 and 5. What are your wishes regarding item 4? The motion to approve by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderperson Dorf. Alderperson Dorf, you had pulled this one.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I spent some hours watching the Improvement in Services meeting because I couldn't attend it, and I felt that Director Grenier gave a very good explanation, a well-informed explanation of his bonding and the projects that he planned to do, and I am not understanding why that needed to be held. And so I'd like to ask Director Grenier to talk a little bit about what the plan was and what are his thoughts on the consequences of holding this.
So, Director Grenier, we're on the INS committee report. Item 4 was to hold the Department of Public Works Capital Improvement Program for 2019. The other person would like to know your thoughts on that and a little bit more about it.
Well, obviously, we brought forward the plan that we were prepared to deliver this year. As far as impacts, not having an approved program kind of stops us from bidding any additional projects out. We can't bid anything out until we have an approved program, so we know what we're bidding.
And what's the timeline? You know, what, this needs to go to finance, I think, next week.
Not necessarily subsequent to the meeting last week. What we found out is that the bond request is not going to be going to Finance Committee until after the mayoral election.
Okay, so you feel there's time?
For the bond request, yes, but we would like to know what program we are delivering.
So that you know what to prepare for.
Well, if we don't have an approved program, I can't put projects out for bid right now.
So then I guess my next question is just to the committee. I listened, I watched it. It seemed like a really good plan. What were the concerns? And I'm hoping that Alder Nicholson and Alder Weary, and I think Alder Johnson were at that committee meeting. Maybe you could give a little better explanation as to why you wanted this to be held. Thank you.
That's up to you guys. You want to comment on that? All right. All right, hang on. Alderman Nicholson.
I have a special meeting for Thursday to address the questions of the committee. There was a couple areas in the city of Green Bay that myself and the committee thought should have some attention. That was not on the capital improvement program, but we have a special meeting to address that and discuss that on Thursday so we can send it to finance. Excuse me, next week. Excuse me.
Is it?
So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. So you'll take this up next Thursday. Alderman Weary, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the chairman said, we're meeting in 2 days to discuss this. I think the entire committee voted in favor. There was $500,000 from the wheel tax put towards program expansion / reduction in borrowing, and we felt that that money could be better used perhaps on adding another street to get done. I think we all desired that the wheel tax, we expand our program. And we wanted to see what options, is there some low-hanging fruit that we could add another street, maybe address some flooding on the east side that we saw. So we just want to look at some options and cost estimates, and we're doing that in 2 days. So, thanks.
Thank you. All right. What time is that? Anybody else? All right, so the motion on the floor is to hold. I don't see any other lights. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Okay, see your light on there, Bill.
I'm sorry.
Turn the light on there. Okay, Alderman Galvin, this is on to hold.
All right. So Steve, if I understood you correctly, holding this will not hurt any of the projects that you're planning on using this money towards, unless that money is cut. Is that correct? I mean, if it's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, is that gonna hurt any of those projects?
Holding means that I do not have authorization to award contracts or bid contracts that are listed within that plan. We have certain projects within the plan that we are pushed up against the construction cycle for already.
All right, then I guess my
It has
next,
no impact on the bonding, but I mentioned this to Alderman Nicholson earlier today. We have no additional information that's going to come forward Thursday night beyond what we had last Wednesday. We have not pulled those estimates together. Staff is still working on them.
Are you gonna be able to have them by Thursday?
No, we will not.
So the meeting on Thursday is gonna be a waste of time?
I'm not gonna say that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. Are they gonna be able to accomplish anything without that information?
That's up to the committee. It's not up to me.
All right. My concern is, I have a situation in my district with pumps and flooding, and I've had neighbors that have had their homes flooded. And part of this bonding is going to allow a permanent pump to be placed in that neighborhood. My concern is, as it actually looks like we're gonna have some weather that might actually melt snow here for once, that, those people's homes are gonna be at risk again. And I know you have a plan in place, but I'm sure they would sleep easier at night knowing that there's a permanent plan and a process in going on. And I'm afraid that if this whole thing gets held up for a few items, that again, their homes are gonna be at risk. And I'm wondering if it's possible to pull the ones that we're concerned about and pass the ones we're not. And I don't know if that's possible. I'm just asking.
Holding anything up, Bill. We're asking for 2 days. That's not gonna hold any project up. 2 days? It still has to go to finance on Monday. We're just having a meeting to try to add to it, to the program. Maybe. We just need more discussion.
Okay?
2 days? I mean, this isn't gonna be held up for 3 to 4 weeks, Bill. We're not
Okay.
doing that.
If
In 2 days, we're gonna pass something.
Okay, if
So
Steve,
go to
so,
finance.
so if Steve doesn't have the information for you, you will still pass something on Thursday?
We're gonna discuss that then. I'm not gonna discuss something over the phone. I want a meeting. Okay, that's why I'm calling a special meeting. And we discussed it at the meeting last week.
Okay.
And we're gonna address Mr. Uri's, situation also. But we're not gonna hold anything up. We're asking for 2 days.
All right, thank
We're
you.
gonna get something to finance for next week. Nothing's gonna be held up. Bonding, bidding, nothing. Okay? All right. Point of clarification.
All right, yep, thank you. Don't forget about that issue you have in your neighborhood on Spring Street either. Just going on record. All right, we moved item 5 over to item 3 of finance, so, yeah. No, your light wasn't on.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure why, but I just want a little clarification on something Director Grenier said, and perhaps the question could be answered by you. He made the comment that the work would go through after the mayoral election. I don't understand that comment.
Well, the bonding is, the same thing happened in 2002. There's a bonding that takes place in, March, April, May, and look, Paul waited for me, and we're gonna wait for the next mayor to sign off on the bonding. So it'd take place in May. And we-
You said that's common practice, you've been here since the city charter was created, basically, so I don't.
Did you hear that?
but
We've bonded, when's the latest we've bonded? We ever bonded in June? We for sure haven't bonded in May. Have we bonded in June? Yeah, it's that time frame.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I just don't want to send the impression that we're grinding to a halt just to elect a new mayor. Just so we are all elected, you're elected, and I don't want that to be the reason why.
We have bonded in June already, so this is going to be a May bonding, which is happened many, many times in this city.
Okay, thank you.
The charter. Okay. So item 5 has been moved to item 3 under finance, because that is an expense item. So we're on to report N, and what are your wishes regarding report N? Oh, yeah, okay. All right, let's vote on 4. Is to hold. All right, there's the motion is second to approve item 4. Under the report of the Improvement Service Committee, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. 5, we move to 3. All right, we're on to report N, report of the redevelopment authority. What are your wishes regarding this report? There's a motion by Alderperson Dorf, second by Alderman Nicholson, to approve report N, the report of the redevelopment authority. Any discussion here? No, I just said that. This is the third time I've said this. Third time. I said we move that to finance with item 3 because it's a financial matter. Why would you take up the finance under INS? It's a financial matter. It's bonding. That's why we moved it to finance. All right, so there's a motion, a second to approve report N. Seeing no lights, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that report's been approved.
Report of the Plan Commission, February 25th, 2019.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Scannell. Second by Alderperson Dorf to approve report O, which is the report of the Plan Commission meeting. That was for their meeting held on February 25th. Yes, there's only one item on here, so a discussion under this report. Item 1 is the only one on here. We've got quite a few people who want to speak as well, Alderman, so if you want to work that into when your remarks are, but I will give you the floor. So we have a motion and a second to approve the report of the Plan Commission. The only item on that report is the authorization conditional use permit, the CUP for the shelter on 430 Clay Street. Alderman Galvin, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I apologize, it seems like if I'm beating a dead horse here, but I think this is an important item that faces not only my district, but the rest of the city. Moving forward, I think we need to start addressing these kind of issues with these cups. My concern is that with the last Planning Commission meeting, the committee was very polite. They listened to what I had to say, but I think they kind of lost track of what I wanted and what I wanted to accomplish with the cup. They passed some of the items, but not all of them. So I'm asking today to have some items added to this cup. The reason I'm having us do this is that the cup is the only thing we have to hold the operator responsible for how his facility is operated. As we found out with some other recent businesses that were granted cups, it was agreed to verbally, a handshake, gentleman's agreement. It wasn't in writing, it wasn't part of the cup, and when they didn't hold to it, we can't hold them to it either. I've got a lot of neighbors that are very concerned about this facility, and I think at the same time, this can become very emotional. You listen to some of the people that have been graduates of the Transformation House, and it's very moving what they've been able to accomplish. And as much as we can tell that to the neighbors, they're the ones that are living next door and across the street, and so they have concerns. And I think we need to listen to that, and I think we need to fashion this cup in such a way that it reassures them and lets them know that the city is listening to them and is willing to put things into place to take action if things don't happen the way they were told it was going to happen. And with that, I'll entertain a motion or I'll make a motion to open the floor for interested parties. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Galvin, second by Alderman Nicholson to open the floor to hear from interested parties. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it. Yeah, go ahead. What?
For point of, could the alder share with us what he wants, because that would be good to share with the, people have commentary on what you would like to see in the cup before we open the.
That is a good point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. What we added was that the Green Bay Police Department would approve a security plan including exterior lighting, landscaping, and the placement of recording devices, and the fact that those recording devices, cameras, and that would be recorded at a place where they could have access to following proper procedures and laws. What I wanted included, and that wasn't included, was that the Green Bay Police Department approved their background check process of the clients that are going to be staying there. St. John's has one that the Green Bay Police Department has helped them fashion. I think it's been very successful. I'm not dictating that they have to have that same one, but that the department take a look at whatever process they have, and they assure us that it's going to catch any potential outliers that are trying to scam the system. The other thing I have a concern about is parking, and perhaps Reverend Rico can address that, but when he spoke at the Planning Commission, he talked about the amount of residents he had at his other facility and the amount of vehicles that they had. It looks like there's gonna be more people at this facility, so I would anticipate more vehicles along with staff's vehicles. And there's a real concern if there's gonna be adequate parking. And I don't want this to turn into a thing where we have continuous complaints about illegally parked vehicles, and we're tying up city resources handling that. So as part of that, I would like as part of the CUP, that Reverend Rico would have to show a site plan showing how many spaces he has and how many vehicles will be able to park in those spaces. And then I have a few questions for him that may dictate me adding one or two other items to this CUP, depending upon the answer I get. Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion second to open the floor to hear from interested parties. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. So this is, if you're gonna come up here and speak, I want you to have, be focused here. This is the report of the Plan Commission. We are talking about planning, rezoning, conditional use permit. Look, I've been in a lot of these meetings, and I don't think there's anyone here in this room who doesn't understand that Pastor Rico lives lives. And many of you have got on the right track because of him, and we respect that. But tonight, we're gonna talk about zoning and a conditional use permit. There are 10 items on this report that have been forwarded to this committee by our planning commissioners. Alderman Galvin wants to add 3 more, and if you want to discuss any of those 10 or these 3, but he's also asking that the police approve a security, lighting, and sound plan. He's asking that the Green Bay Police Department provide and do the work on the background checks, and he's asking that an approved parking plan be submitted as part of the conditional use permit. Now, he may have some other comments later, but the 10 things that you have on your agenda, plus the 3 that the aldermen have, is what the council is going to be voting on regarding this special zoning, this conditional use permit. And if we hold our discussion to that, we can make some progress tonight. So if you want to come up and say something, I'd like to hold the comments to 3 minutes. I have Mr. Larry Fry, Vincent Washington, and then Elaine Fry. So if you'd like to queue up here, be happy to hear your comments. Stand behind the podium and I'll hit your microphone.
Good evening, my name is Eileen Fry. I live at 425 South Clay. I just need a quick clarification as the letter that was sent to us. There was a change in the wording that concerns with the rooming and boarding house, and those were never words that were used on the other letters that were sent to us. Now,
You know, I saw your letter and I thought Paul got back to you on that. But Kevin, do you want to just make a
I
comment
just
on
want to
that?
make that clear. Typos are important.
That was a Scribner's error, so it's, we're talking about a shelter facility, so that was an error.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
I'd like you to hear our plea once again to not grant the conditional use permit to a men's shelter across from my home. It was purchased first before application for the permit was made. We feel that it's not fit for the property values are going to be affected by this, and we will now be required to disclose in any sales of our property that there is a shelter in the neighborhood. That's what I understand, anyway. We learned last week from the Planning Committee about the Wisconsin Act 67. I don't know who in here is aware of that act that has changed or essentially tied your hands as a city or a county to make it extremely difficult to oppose a CUP application. I think a consult with a lawyer might be necessary to figure that out, and we would need time to go that route. In that vein, once that CUP is granted for this shelter, another application for Mr. Rako to open an overnight shelter for over 100 individuals at that address would be almost impossible for you as a city council to deny. Time is needed on our part to investigate. And the last portion is, I've sent my objections to Mr. Newmeyer, Mr. Galvin, and Mayor Schmidt requesting denial of this CUP permit to 430 South Clay Street, and have asked that further conditions be added to the conditions already put forth to the Transformation House Incorporated. And I hope this council will consider our need for more time to get answers to important questions that I'm getting no answers to. And then a quick addition, I have two important questions. Is the Faith Tabernacle and Mr. Rako's construction business also moving to that address at this time or any time in the future? And will permits be required? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this?
Hi, my name is Vincent Washington. I heard what the mayor said that he didn't want to hear no speeches like that, and that's good, I understand that. But I got to share something with you anyway. I'm a disabled veteran, all right, and I had a lot of issues when I was coming up. When I got the military, I had a lot of issues. Okay, I'm one of them victims. Okay, I was a criminal, I was a drug addict, and I was homeless. And I was going from city to city, state to state. I was lost, all right? Until I met Pastor Rico and Minister CJ and got involved with their program. A program that helped me. A program, the VA did all they could. I got nothing against the VA. I love the VA. But when I got tired, I found a program that helped me. Green Bay, I love Green Bay now. But you know what? I needed a place. You know what I'm saying? I know everybody got somebody who's in the military or who been in the prison or who's homeless. Something happened to them. They need a place where they can get a chance again. I mean, don't just shut places down who are truly trying to help us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to say they can help everybody. I understand the community is worried, but give them a chance. They got cameras. They putting up cameras outside. They trying to do the things you asked them to do. You know, like I said, I'm a disabled veteran, but I don't mind volunteer to help them. You know what I'm saying? All I'm asking you this, you know, I'm asking y'all, give them a chance, you know, because if you really look in your heart, everybody need a chance. Everybody need a chance. I thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, Pastor Rico, I see your name on here that you wanted to speak, and then I have a Larry Fry. Did you want to speak as well? Okay.
Good evening. Just to address some of the questions, well, the requests. Right now, we have cameras going throughout the facility. On 436, we have cameras going throughout the facility, inside and out. I tell a lot of people the camera is my middle name. And not only do I have cameras being set up in our security room on the facility, at the facility, but they also on my phone, so I can keep track of what's going on, whether I'm there or not. We have always worked closely with the law enforcement and the police department. Whenever they came to the building, we'll take them straight to the room. First thing I tell the guys that if you got anything you hiding, don't come here, because I take them right to your door. I have asked officers to come in, sit down, have coffee, the neighborhood, come check out the facility many times. At 430 South Clay Street, we got plenty of rooms in there, and we can set up camp there. I think that what we're doing, it would enhance the neighborhood. It is a nice neighborhood, but we want to make it better. And by helping the guys to come in, come out refined, you know, guys getting back connected with their children, back connected with their family, with a whole new change of attitude. It's very important. Ed talked about the parking. The parking, we have 21 parking spots. A lot of the guys that resides at the Transformation House don't have vehicles. The ones that do have vehicles, we have guys that work in the day, some guys work at night. On 436 South Jefferson, we had plenty of parking all the time. And you know, there was no parking on the streets. All the cars was able to get in the parking spaces, not utilize any other parking. I think one of the, one of the requirements for us to open is to have site plans. And one of the requirements is to have building plans. Is a requirement for, to come in and inspect the place. So we trying to make sure that we have a good, healthy environment and also work closely with the law enforcement.
Yes. Alderman Galvin had the floor, but you want to yield there, or?
If I could just ask some questions and.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Pastor Rico. And I called you Reverend Rico before. I don't know if that was out of line or.
No, it's good.
Okay, I'm sorry if I was. Just a couple questions. And part of this, I don't want you to take any insult from this, but this is something that information are sending to me. And instead of just letting it turn into scuttlebutt, I just want to air it out in the open and just get an answer from you one way or the other and just put it to rest. All right?
Okay.
Just basically just try and put the rumors down and let's just deal with facts. Now, the cup indicates now that you are not to operate your soup kitchen, which in the past was something where you invited people from outside your facility to come in and have a meal to help them out, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to be serving meals, though, to your staff and clients made at the facility?
Yes.
Okay. Also, are you going to have any clients that are on any kind of an early release program for state or federal prisons?
What we do is, if they're really ready to change their life around and working closely, we work closely with probation, parole officers, and law enforcement. If they're not a registered sex offender, I believe that they need to have a chance too. But in the past, we haven't had anybody that, I think they went to Hubert, and then they got out of the Hubert, then they needed a place to stay, and they come to the Transformation House.
Okay, and I agree. There's been a strong push finally in the state level to start reducing some sentencing in that, to allow people to get out of prison and get their lives back together again. But I guess what I'm asking you is do you take any clients in which you're compensated financially by any state or federal prison systems to take them in like early release programs?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your information.
Alderperson Dorff?
Thank you. Pastor Rico, I attended the first Plan Commission and I watched the second Plan Commission, so I wanted to get, as much information as I could. One of the things that concerned me, and I'm just wondering what the answer is that I understand there's a curfew and that the doors are locked, and that if they come after the curfew, they can't get in. Where do they go then?
Well, we have St. John's. We have the New Community. I just want to say this, is that when guys come up and they coming in after curfew, we don't want to set that standard. It's all about accountability. It's all about structure. It's, the time for the be in is at 11 o'clock. Lights out is at 11:30. You can have lights on in your room, but you got to stop moving around throughout the halls. But now the ones who's getting off of work and running late, they can come in. But if someone just out hanging out and want to come back at 11:30, 12 o'clock and come in, we don't let them in. Because we don't want to get that started. And we tried that in the past, where you let this guy in at past time, then now we got the whole house saying the same thing. So, but what we do know is that by setting that standard and by turning down one, maybe two, we have probably in the 6 years, probably had a couple of people that had to be turned around. Everybody's trying to get in before time. Everybody, because one thing is that everybody has to be breathalyzed before 11 o'clock.
So maybe I wasn't exactly clear, but so the door's locked, they can't get in, it's nighttime, where do they go to sleep? Is that a concern for the neighborhood? I mean, does someone take them to St. John's? This is a person that's out on the street now at 11 o'clock at night. Where do they go that night?
It all depends on what they were doing out there that time of the night. So what we're saying is we set some standards, and we noticed that the guys, pretty much, they comply with the rules. So if it was that they come in 10:30, they have to have a good excuse why they're not there before 11, or they have to call and let somebody know that I'm running late. So it still is all about accountability, and it's all about, structure. If you was going to your job and you got to be at 8 o'clock, you come in at 8:30, you're subject to get fired. So this is what we're trying to turn around with the guys. The guys, they just, when you don't have no structure, you just do anything, And so, and it's one of the rules that we put in place. That's why the program works, because it's so structured. And nobody's there, they're not trying to leave out. We've got some pretty good guys there.
Okay.
I understand what
Yeah, I don't know that you answered your question. I live over by St. John's. I'd like so somebody shows up, the doors are locked, and they're to find their way to another shelter? Is that what you said?
It's all about, we don't, what I do is, I don't necessarily, you do something wrong, crucify you right then. But what I do is, I sit back and say the curfew, and we talk about the curfew, it's 11 o'clock. When, you guys don't want nobody running around out in the street after 11 o'clock, so we got curfew. It's all about structure. We don't want nobody out. And I'm gonna tell you something, the guys at the transformation house don't be out after 11 o'clock. They have to have a real good reason. So you asking me something that don't normally happen. Because when they come past 11 o'clock, they normally calling in, say I'm gonna be late, or it's justified because they getting off work and they not coming back in on time.
I want to prevent someone from running around after 11 o'clock at night. That's kind of my concern. Maybe give them a natural consequence the next day. I don't want them sleeping in the neighborhood, I guess. It's night.
We in the past, we do not have individuals laying around, sleeping around. We make sure that everyone has a bed.
All right, Alderman Scannell?
Just a little follow-up on that. I mean, these are the same rules you had at the Transformation House on Jefferson, correct?
Yes, sir.
And historically, that's not, I mean, has that been a problem? People showing up? Yeah. People get in the program. I mean, I think Pastor Rico does a good job of picking his people that he works with and works with them pretty closely, that this isn't going to be a problem. That he's working with a clientele that are ready to make a change, and they're ready to get in the program, and they follow the program. So the only other question I have is, you're not allowed to have a soup kitchen, but will you still be able to have the spaghetti and catfish fry on Fridays for...
Right now, I just like to focus on a good program that would help guys. And another thing, to back on that same question, guys coming in, we don't just, guys show up and we let them in. They have to, there is a intake area that we sit down and we talk to them, we find out where they're gonna be at, we do the background checks, you know, and we don't just check this Green Bay, we check all over the United States, and see if they have any warrants or anything like that on them. And so, but in the past, we haven't had that, and that's something to look at.
Right. Any other questions here? All right.
No,
I
got my light lit.
Do I, Mayor?
I do not have your light lit, but I'm happy to recognize you.
Thank you. Question, how do you make your finances?
Our finances come through donations, it comes through grants, it comes through every guy there. There's a program fee that they have to pay each week to stay there.
How much is that?
It's $85 a week,
85 a week?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
We do fundraisers. That's what I've been talking about, the fish fry, about, you know. So we do those different things to raise funds.
Okay. When you do background checks, who pays for that? If you're doing a background check on an individual throughout the country, who pays for that?
We do,
You do?
yes.
How much is that?
It varies, probably about $12 or something like that, $20.
Chief, how much is it for NCIS? Is that the correct, not CCAP?
I do not know the answer to how much it is for that,
Well,
sir.
I believe
Sorry.
it's a little more than $12. When I was an officer, it was a lot more than $12 back in '97. Who pays for that? I hope the police department doesn't pay for that.
Pay for it.
But I guess that's just my concern, one of my concerns. So, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I have no speakers on here, but I know you want to talk. Alderperson Scannell?
No,
I thought you said you wanted to.
no, ask the question, I did.
Oh, all right. I don't have any other lights on. Well, let's reword that. I don't have any other lights on. but you would like to speak, and I'm happy to recognize you. Alderman
I was gonna
Vanderleest.
ask you, do you have a 24-hour staff?
Alderman, if you just speak into your mic, then everybody can hear the question, and
Do you have a 24-hour staff that's in your facility, in other words, that are there monitoring
24
the
hours, yes.
situation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's my only question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Pastor Rico, Alderman Galvin provided 3 additions to the cup that he recommended. And this isn't meant to be verbatim, but from what I understand, the Green Bay Police Department approved security lighting, landscaping, recording devices. Are you agreeable to that?
I'm already doing it.
Okay, so in this new facility, you're okay with that?
Yes.
Second one will be Green Bay Police Department approved background check process, so that our police department would review and then approve your background check process. Are you agreeable to that?
My desire is to work closely with the police department.
So to adopt one similar to what St. John's Homeless Shelter currently does?
Whatever it takes.
Okay, and then thirdly, and you commented briefly on this, parking, the amount of residents, the vehicles, the traffic going in and out of the facility, if we address that through the CUP process, are you agreeable to what the city recommends?
But they already have strict
Okay.
rules on that.
So I hear you're okay with all 3, and again, I know there are some details that need to be worked out. Would you, do you feel that these 3 additions would impede your ability to successfully operate and sustain your facility?
No, we believe in lighting all the way around. We believe in cameras everywhere, all the way around.
Okay.
We believe in working closely with the law enforcement and the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, and we want to encourage them and you guys to come over and take a look and see what we do. You know, and in the past, we always have our doors open. Different agencies come walk through, community, the aldermen, they come in, walk through, see what we're doing, and I say, listen, what? You don't hear that riffraff running around, people cussing and loud and everything. I said, well, we got about 30 guys up in here, you know. So we don't do that. The guys that coming through the transformation house, they're seriously looking to change their life around. They on a mission. They either going to school or they're working. If they on disability, they doing community service. Everybody there need to be doing something, or that's not the facility for them.
Sure. Pastor, I agree with everything you just said. I value what you do. You're building up lives. You're helping men who otherwise would have nowhere else to go. I think my main concern, I don't speak for the council, would be how do we make this work within the neighborhood so the neighbors you hear the neighbors' concerns and you work together. So to finish, I just have a couple other questions. You're the director of the Transformation House. Do you reside at the facility? Would you be living here?
No, I don't.
Okay, how often are you going to be there?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
8 hours, 10 hours?
No, my time varies. Sometimes I'm there all day, sometime half of the night. And all the cameras are downloaded on my phone. Or I can pull them up on the computer at the house. So I'm watching.
Okay, and the final question, and you don't feel, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, because I'm not trying to set you up for anything, but the biggest thing that I struggle with through this was that you purchased the property, correct? Is the property completely purchased?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you purchase the property without first going through this process? And again, don't have to answer it. That's just what I'm really struggling, trying to understand.
Well, we was at 436 South Jefferson. The owners of the building, they didn't do anything as far as upkeeping the building. We spent tons of money repairing this building. Then we decided that we needed a different location. So we went over to 610 South Broadway. And when we purchased that, a lot of work had to be done, and got WIC and Brown County Health in there. Didn't want to really put them out. Both of them been there 20 years. So we started working on a smaller building, but it was taking us away from our mission, you know. And then we found out that the Santa Maria's nursing home was closing, and the owners of the facility had a passion in what we were doing. And so, and we were just so excited to get back helping guys. We got tons of calls of guys that's looking for a facility like that. And we just start moving forward, you know, not really trying to deceive nobody or nothing like that, but we just wanted to get the program going.
No, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way that I look at this was that you're probably thinking that your reputation running your other facilities would carry you through to this facility and not have any issues. Like
No.
you believe you've had a proven track record serving a population in Green Bay that otherwise is underserved. And you felt that by doing that so well, from what I've heard and what I've researched and my personal experience working with people through the Transformation House, that you probably felt that all of your efforts would prove that you'd be able to do it in this new neighborhood? Would that be a fair?
No, I just wanted to help guys.
Okay. No, that's my point, though, that
I didn't.
you had no problems in the old neighborhood, the other facilities.
Well, the
they-
other facility, we did, it was something like this here. We had people come out and protest, and, but later on, 6 months later, the main one that was protesting came over to the building, and she said she made a mistake. You know, we run a good facility, and she ate at the soup kitchen. She asked me to pray with her. We have another individuals who stayed down the street. They didn't even know we was there. You know, and the neighbors here probably don't know we're there once we get started.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Johnson?
Thank you for answering our questions tonight, Pastor Rico. The one question that I have that I couldn't quite find in the documents was related to your organizational structure. Are you a nonprofit organization?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so you have a board of directors that you report to?
Yes.
And how many people are on that board of directors?
It's 7.
Okay, and you're the director, so whether you're paid staff or you're kind of the guy in charge then of
the facility.
Of the facility, okay. And if something were to happen to you, heaven forbid, does your organization have an exit strategy with, would they just continue to maintain the facility and hire a new director, or I guess how does that process look?
We never came to that.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, and so maybe that is one thing that I would just at least urge you to consider, and have your board of directors consider is what that would look like.
Because when I look at the Transformation House, I'm not looking at it for it to go away. I believe that we putting a good program here, probably put another one, you know, this to be the what you call the template. Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to find out and trying to build a good facility that does work and does help. And so far, our track record has showed that the program does work.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the pastor, also Alderman Stoyer, okay? Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks, Pastor Rico, for being here. Like I mentioned at last council, you know, a lot of us honor your mission. We understand that you're doing some good work, But again, you know, you're gonna be in the neighborhood, and that is our concern. So, with that being said, I wanted to ask you, have you had any support from the neighbors at all, or from other businesses or churches in the neighborhood? Have you had anybody come forward? Because I've heard we've gotten a few letters from folks that are against it for whatever reason, but I just wanted to know if you've had any support. And
Yes, we
from,
have.
from who?
Yes, and there's some people in the neighborhood support what we do and what we're doing and think that it's a good thing being there. But then there's a few that don't. There's a few that just don't understand the program and what we're doing. When you think about shelters, you think about whole bunch of people who's sleeping in the street, doing all kind of different stuff. And that's not the Transformation House. But we have people that would love us to be in the neighborhood also.
One other point, you know, there's 10 different items here, and then Alder Galvin's adding 3, so it's like 13 different elements to the cup. And I don't know, you probably do realize that, you know, our hands are tied somewhat with this by the fact that the state has certain requirements and that, so it's important that we get a lot of this up front so that you understand that we're gonna do it correctly. So I just needed to reiterate that, so that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Alderman Nicholson?
Yeah, I have a question. Where do these people come from? Do you recruit? I mean, how do they find out where you're at? I mean,
Some people, you know, they find out what we do. They on through our website. We have probation, parole officers. They're calling us centers, people that went through treatment centers. They called for a facility for guys who done made it through their program. We got guys who just down on their luck and they need a good, healthy place to stay. They call us up. So guys are calling from all different directions. So
what is the percentage of just Green Bay people? Born and raised in Green Bay compared to Texas, California, New Mexico, all over the country?
It's my understanding, over 80% of the people is from around here. I don't do the statistics. Have Minister CJ.
I can't hear you, sir.
Minister CJ, he do our statistics. I just stay in my element, but as far as who's from here, who's not from here, he's best to answer all of that.
Is he here?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Could I ask him that question, Mayor?
Sure. Pastor CJ, the alderman is talking about the database. Where are the men in your facility? Where did they reside prior to coming to you, and a little bit about their history?
For the most part, they all come from.
If you come up to the podium and, yeah, if you state your name and address, then we have it, you know, as part of our notes.
Minister Conardo Johnson, 1525 Capitol Drive. For the most part, when we do the intake process and have them list where they lived at for the last year or so, I would say about 75% put down Green Bay as far as being born and raised in Green Bay.
Yeah, born and raised.
Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that we don't know, if they were all born and raised in Green Bay.
So if someone from California shows up, says, well, I've been here 2 days, I'm from Green Bay, you take that as Green Bay?
No. Like I said, the check that we do tells us, okay, where you lived at and where you slept at over the last year, over the last 30 days, and last night.
Okay, I guess I'd be very, well, I'll save that for debate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions for Pastor? All right, thank you, Pastor Rico. Anyone else wishing to come and speak to this item? Please, to the podium and state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Larry Fry, 425 South Calais Street. One of the questions that I have that, well, several of them that have not been answered. One, we were concerned about whether there would be church services from his church at this facility, and if that is part of the CUP permit, there's, what other activities will be taking place there. The other concerns enforcement of the conditions put on the CUP permit. I don't understand if it's my responsibility to go in and count heads, make sure that there's not 47 or instead of 46, or if, all the other conditions are met ongoing. And that's what my concern is.
All right, thank you. Pastor, maybe you just want to comment on if you're going to be having ecumenical services and enforcement. So the neighbor across the street was asking about if, you said that you would not be having some food service there, but what about church services?
Well, yes, we won't have our soup kitchen. But we do Bible studies. We encourage, in the past, we have churches come out and do Bible studies with guys. On Sundays, we do have a service there at the facility. And we don't force anyone to come to the services. We encourage everyone to tap into their spiritual side and go to whatever church that they reside at. And we encourage churches to come to pick up guys and take them to their services. And so that's how that is. So we do have services there.
Right. And then I think we're all thinking the same question, but I'll ask it. The enforcement. I mean, I think all the aldermen's going to be proposing
Okay,
13
so
items. Just let me finish here. Inspection, is it open anytime to our inspectors, or is it, how's the enforcement handled on a facility like this?
Okay, so, for one, at the Transformation House, everyone in the facility has to sign in and out. So we know who's all in there at all times. When they breathalyze, they have to stay in the facility, they write down and they sign their name, and the one who breathalyzing them also put their signature right there with them. When they going out if they working at night, they're gonna be out all night, they gotta sign out. And so what we do is we verify their employment, making sure that their work schedule times match what they said. And as far as in the past, we have had law enforcement come at night, we had law enforcement coming the day all through, and we always welcome the law enforcement to come through the Transformation House.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you.
Yeah, I brought up some
Oh.
issues. Why would we have to breathalyze everyone? Why would we need the police to walk in there? I mean, doesn't the police have better things to do?
Well, that's one of the policies of the Transformation House,
But is there an issue why we have to give them a breathalyzer?
If some of these
If I
guys-
could interrupt for a second, Andy, we don't do that. They do it as part of their operating plan. The Green Bay Police Department.
Breathalyze?
Right, the city of Green Bay doesn't do it.
Right.
They do it, just like any other facility.
Their staff would.
Yes.
Why would they have to do that?
No.
Well, if I can have some consideration from my colleagues, it's a question.
Well, it's.
Thank you, LaFave.
Well, they do it at NEW. They do it at a lot of the facilities where they're dealing with people that have gone through treatment or are struggling with addiction issues.
Okay, that's what I wanted to establish. We're dealing
So
with
it's-
a
it's
lot of
pretty
people that
standard.
are,
It's pretty
we're dealing
standard.
with people that have some serious issues.
Some, yes.
Correct?
Well, some have had addiction issues in their past or are currently dealing with them.
Over half the
Over
residents-
half?
Over half, probably, I'm just saying, over half of the residents, they don't have alcohol issues nor drug issues.
Over half.
Over half.
Okay, thank you.
But that's just one of the requirements that's staying at the Transformation House, and that applies to everyone.
So if there's alcohol in their breath, then what do you do?
That's bound to be terminated from the program.
And then where do they go? They just somewhere out in the streets? Somewhere, or you don't know? Okay, thank you.
Alderman Galvin?
Thank you, Pastor Rico. I have a letter I'd like to read. This is from St. Paul Lutheran Church and School located at 514 South Clay Street. This is from Church Council Vice Chair Phil Peterson. And he asked me, he couldn't make it tonight, so he asked me to read this letter. Dear members of the Common Council, since 1883, St. Paul Lutheran Church has been part of the Green Bay community. Our existing facility covers 3/4 of the block just south of the proposed Transformation House. We value our location, neighborhood, and are committed to it. As part of our ministry, we operate a 3K through 8th grade parochial school. Total attendance is just over 100. Of note, our registration for next year's 3 and 4K classes already have 30 children. This is the most we have ever had this early in the registration process. As a church, we are concerned for the physical and spiritual welfare of the men who would be served by the proposed Transformation House. As parents and school administrators, we are concerned for the health and welfare of our students. We do not have the answer as to how both of these concerns should be met. We have no formal position for or against the Transformation House. We are thankful that city leaders are showing such due diligence in studying and discussing the situation. We are pleased that a condition of the CUP permit is an assessment of the actual Santa Maria facility by the city building inspector for the proposed usage. This would be for the safety of the participants as well as for the long-term operation of the program if it is approved. The building is old, just as our building is. We have had to deal with the stresses that deferred maintenance and unforeseen building failures can put on a nonprofit. Our members care deeply about our community and trust that our city officials will make the right decision about what's best for our neighborhood and our city. We look forward to continuing to serve our neighbors and the people of Green Bay. Sincerely, Philip C. Peterson, Church Council Vice Chair. And then before I make any more comments, it was a real education process, learning about cups and certifications of occupancy.
Can I bring us back to regular order?
Sure, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's make that motion.
Make a motion to bring back to regular order of business.
By Alderman Galvin, second by Alderman Weary. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. All right, Alderman Galvin, go ahead.
So anyway, it's been a real education process, learning about cups, how cups operate, how the state law has affected us, but also that there's a process for anyone that wants to get a cup and open up any kind of a business or facility within this community. And I would ask if Dr. Vaughn could take a few minutes to educate the rest of us on how this works exactly. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Alder Galvin. One over. Sorry. So part of what we require in our zoning code, we have a lot of uses that are permitted by right, right? So in a certain district, a residential district, an office district, a commercial district, by right, you can come in to our department get a permit to do a particular use in that particular district. There's certain uses which we feel, require some special care, some special scrutiny. Maybe they'd be right, maybe they wouldn't. And so we call those conditional uses. And we have a number of, if you look at our zoning code, there's a table and it talks about in each district, some uses are conditional. And in this case, in this district, a shelter facility is a conditional use that requires coming before the Plan Commission and ultimately council to get this conditional use permit. And so I think as Alder Galvin had referred, the two steps of this are one, in granting the conditional use permit. The ability to even do what an applicant intends to do has to go through the Plan Commission, and in this case, you can attach conditions to it. Staff initially recommended a set of conditions that we felt were appropriate to protect the health, safety, welfare of the neighborhood. Some additional conditions were discussed at the original Plan Commission meeting. Some were added. This came to council, it went back, and tonight I think Alder Galvin has proposed some additional conditions on it that would allow basically council to review, has the applicant been able to satisfy these conditions prior to the city issuing that conditional use permit. So once council approves the conditional use permit, then it moves to more of an administrative manner where our department will look at that project, and the applicant will be able to come in and get building permits, to do the work on the building to lead it towards ultimately a certificate of occupancy. The certificate of occupancy is what is needed to actually habitate, do the use inside the building. And before we issue that certificate of occupancy, any project, before we issue a certificate of occupancy, our inspectors go through, right, check the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, structural, all of those things, making sure that it complies with our building codes. In this case, having to meet the commercial code because you're, looking at housing residents there. But then they also look at, all right, as part of that conditional use permit, do we have all of those things on that checklist? All of those conditions, have all of those conditions been met for us to issue that certificate of occupancy? So I think if that's what you're asking in terms of the two-step process, this first step is the conditional use permit itself, which basically sets the standards before we can issue the certificate of occupancy later on down the line.
And just a couple questions. So if we do or do not add anything to this cup, he has to complete every checkbox on this cup before he can even move to have a petition for the certification of occupancy. Is that correct?
That is correct. Based on this proposed use, how he wants to use it as a transitional housing facility, he has to meet all of these conditions.
And if at any time after he has completed the cup checklist and he has a certification of occupancy, if anything should come up where it's felt that he's violating the cup, council, or I believe yourself, and there's maybe one other entity,
Council, Plan Commission, or myself.
can revoke that cup and effectively shut him down if something can't be worked out.
Just to clarify, I can't do it directly, but what we could do is, through due process, bring it back to the Plan Commission, who would then recommend to council to basically take it away. So it wouldn't be a unilateral thing unless there's a, in cases of health safety matters, let's just say, right, there's windows that you can't get out over, the sprinkler system doesn't work. I mean, we've shut down properties before in emergency situations, but in terms of revoking the CUP, a member of council, Plan Commission, myself, or our department could follow up on complaint, feeling that things weren't being followed. That could be brought back before the Plan Commission, who would make a recommendation to council whether to keep the CUP or take it away.
Thank you. So what I'm proposing to add to the cup currently, and I would just point out under letter I, it says the facility may conduct activities to serve residents and may occasionally conduct neighborhood outreach events on site. I think that would include the fundraisers that Randy was referring to, but this still kitchen would not be open on a daily basis. They already have it under letter D, a mandatory background check for all residents is required. I just want to add in there, and I think that's the best place to add it in, is that that process would be approved by the Green Bay Police Department. And then after letter K, I would like letter L, show an on-site plan that will have, that will show adequate parking for staff and clients. Yes.
Clarification, wouldn't a site plan cover that? G, wouldn't parking be included?
We could put it in there, but I want to make sure that this is covered and doesn't get lost in the,
That's a
right,
specification.
because,
However you want to put it.
because if you look at the current, map of the, and I have a color one, which is a little more clear. I'm not sure exactly what adequate parking is gonna be, but I'm looking for them to clarify how many spots they'll have, and I think we can go from there, and see if it's gonna work or not. So that's my proposal, to this process, and I guess, someone brought up about enforcement, Mr. Fry did. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm struggling, how do we go about enforcement? What do we do with the current facilities, such as St. John's?
They don't listen to us.
I'm looking for input on that.
No.
Sure. Generally, I mean, follow standard process against any property or structure in the city. Anyone can file a complaint if they feel that our housing and zoning code is not being complied with. And in this case, if someone feels, look, there's these conditions on this particular use, I have reason to believe that they're not being complied with, to follow a complaint, and we can go up and re-inspect the facility or follow up on the complaint to see if that condition's being met or if it's a building code violation. It'd be just part of our standard process that we do for any property in the city.
All right. And then, I'm just reminded, since he is gonna be serving food there, that falls under the Brown County Health Department to certify their kitchen facility? Is that correct?
I'd have to double check, but I believe if you're going to be, yes, serving it kind of beyond yourself, there may be requirements with the health department in terms of safety. From the city's perspective, I mean, there would be requirements for that kitchen equipment to make sure all the HVAC and electrical and plumbing is all up to code.
Okay, and does the city notify the health department, or how does that go about? So we may just make sure something doesn't fall through the cracks.
Sure. I'll have to look generally. This is a little bit different case because, for like restaurants and other things, you generally need other types of licensure that the county gets notified there. In this case, because it's a shelter facility, but I could make a note just to make sure that they're aware of this, and if they need any inspection or certification, that they're notified.
All right, thank you.
Make a motion to amend?
So I'm making a motion to amend and
Second.
to add the items that I've discussed. I guess I would check with Dr. Vonk. Must he show that he's done everything in the cup prior to issuing the cup? Are we allowed to do that, or do we issue the cup and he has to fulfill the cup before the process moves on?
Sure. I guess that would be at the discretion of the council. Generally, when we do approve a CUP, then, all right, there's a list of conditions. And then it would be administrative as to, all right, us going through, our department going through and saying, yep, everything checks the boxes. There are some cases where our plan commission would like to see those things, and are those things being met? There are some cases where the council may want to see those things. I think in terms of some of the conditions included in the plan commission packet, it talked about an operations plan that addresses some of these things. I think there's some things that the council didn't see. It's up to their pleasure whether they would like to see those things before they feel comfortable approving it. If you decide to hold it, you can wait for it to review it. If not, then whatever is in there will be done administratively according to our procedures.
Thank you. So my amendment is to add the two items that I discussed, and that I would also like it that all these items are met before we issue the cup. At that point, it would be up to the council to, once it's met, that the council reviews it and approves it at council.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor from Alderman Galvin to add 2 more items to this conditional use permit, and that these conditions are met prior to this body awarding the conditional use permit. And you seconded that. So that's what we're discussing right now. You have before you item O, and it really goes through J. I know, Randy, you thought we could add, parking to the site plan, but I'm just gonna leave that, that he shows a parking plan for both employees and residency. So I left that one separate. And then that, the background checks process is approved by, the City of Green Bay Police Department. And that these items are all met, and then it comes back to this body for approval. That's what's on the floor. Alderman Johnson, is your light on? Yes. All right. Go ahead.
Just on that topic, I think there's one other thing, Alderman Galvin, that I would ask maybe you add to that, and that is, it may seem like a small thing, but page 5, well, it says under letter E that they have to conform with the operating plan. On page 5, it indicates that part of their method is to run a soup kitchen. That's inconsistent with item I that says they will not conduct a soup kitchen, so I think that's a big issue, but those things come back to bite you in the tail later, so I think we ought to resolve that inconsistency.
Like on the floor, or when he comes back with the request?
I think we can do that on the floor. Just strike that line from the operating plan.
Right. I agree. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on this, or else we're going to vote? Yep. Alderman Nicholson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just concerned with the safety of the neighborhood. I mean, there's individuals with some really heavy, dangerous backgrounds and issues. So, like for a scenario, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 individuals are turned back because they're drinking and they're on the streets and they commit a crime in the neighborhood. Is that fair to the neighbors? What can we have in the CUP that can hold that organization responsible? Because I feel that the neighbors who've been there first have an investment, they want to resell their house, which I know property value will go down. That's a guarantee. I've seen this before. Who's looking out for the neighbors? Who's protecting the Fries and everybody else? So how can we hold that organization responsible when they turn someone back because they're intoxicated?
Andy, under C,
Okay?
it says that C is at the discretion of Common Council, Plan Commissioner, Development Director, a review may be required. And the first one it lists under that, under number 1, is police calls and other documented safety concerns. So I would think if an incident like that occurred, or, you know, so it says police calls and other documented safety concerns, that could be cause to do a review.
Could be. Okay. All right. All right, thanks, Bill. I think it should have more teeth in it. Could be a review.
When I say could be, I guess it.
Shall?
I mean, any councilman could ask for a review, but.
Well, how do we find out if the police department, and there's a lot of issues with the police department when they receive phone calls that we don't receive the feedback.
Well, the police department's aware of this. I went through every call for service at the other transformation house, the other site, over a 6-year period. I went through 140 calls for service.
140 calls.
And I looked at NEW for comparison, and I looked at St. John's. Now, the difference between St. John's and Transformation House is St. John's is a wet facility, meaning individuals that
Right.
have been drinking could be in there, and at Transformation House, it's not allowed. And also at NEW. And I would say the calls for service at Transformation House were not out of line with the number of calls or types of calls at NEW or at St. John's. In addition, looking at the calls for service at Transformation House, a high percentage were the type of calls you would find in almost any other apartment building. I mean, there were some reports of theft, there were some very minor disagreements. There were calls, alarm calls, where alarms were going off every once in a while. There were calls where clients were not following staff's direction, and they were escorted from the facility, or the police were able to work out some kind of an agreement. There were calls where probation and parole would visit that site to check on clients that were staying there, to make sure they were compliant with their release orders. So I didn't find anything that really troubled me at all, really, out of all those calls. Because I was concerned at first when I saw the number, but like I said, when I did comparisons, it wasn't out of line. And a lot of the types of calls were, some had actually nothing to do with the facility, but someone does a traffic stop, they look up, it says 4036 South Jefferson, so
Yeah.
that's what they call out.
I know that, Bill.
Yeah, so.
I'm just concerned about the safety of the neighbors. We're bringing in a lot of people. How many people in this facility?
46.
46. And the other place was on Jefferson, how many?
About 30,
30?
Pastor? Was
So-
it about 30?
So is that
About
going to
30.
stay open also?
No, it's closed.
It's closing, we're just
No, no,
increasing
it's-
it by
it's al-
about
It's
16?
already closed.
It's already closed?
Yes.
So where are these individuals right now?
Okay.
Does anybody care, or?
Mr. Is.
I guess I do, but. I don't know, I have concerns.
Right.
I'd rather prevent something until something happens. I guess, I'd rather see more teeth in it, Bill. Shall instead of, you know what?
Well,
What does
I
it
guess,
say again?
what would you look for a tipping point to make it a shall? I mean, I think if the police, and the police have done a pretty good job, especially when it comes to monitoring other sites within the city, that if they have concerns, they bring it either to P&P or they bring it straight to the city council.
I guess my concern, if there's some type of crime,
I'm not sure where to go with that, to be honest with you.
I'm just concerned about the neighbors. I'd still like to see some teeth. So if anything happens, should we have the neighbors call and then
To-
police
to
look
remind
at
you,
it?
I-
They look at it, and they don't feel that.
The motion on
I
the
think if
floor
there's
is.
a call of the police department to that address, city council should be aware of it.
Okay.
At least that.
Okay, would you like a monthly report on calls for service?
I'd say every
related to the
quarter.
trans-
Every quarter, start with a
Every quarter.
quarter. Is that fair, Bill?
I mean,
It's the neighborhood you represent. I tell you what, I know I would have, if it was in District 3, I'd have that whole place packed with neighbors.
I don't have a problem having a
But-
quarterly report from the police department. I just don't want to burden them too much. And I guess I would ask the chief, if that's something you think you do, all right. Let's say we get a quarterly report.
Quarter? Is that fair?
Sure.
All right, thank you. I'm done, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I want to remind you that the motion on the floor is to consider a conditional use permit. We're not authorizing one, we're considering one if these conditions are met. I want to be. Yes.
Yes.
So you have the items that are listed, plus we have the parking, the police background check, and quarterly reports. Those are just things that he's going, if he agrees to all of this, he comes back and then you'll consider giving a conditional use permit. You're not authorizing, that's not, the motion on the floor is not to authorize one tonight. Okay.
Dr. Vonk?
My meeting.
So I just think it should be clear in the motion, if you want the applicant to come back and present those, it should be a motion to do those, but also hold it. So that it stays here, because it has to go somewhere, and if it's not going anywhere to get approved and you want to see those things
Okay.
before approving it, then it'd probably be, and I'll defer to the city attorney, but probably to hold it so it stays here, so that it doesn't go back to planning commission, but it's staying here because you want to see those things before you issue the CUP.
Okay, thank you.
So you're gonna amend it to hold until these items are met, okay. Anybody else want to speak to this? Mike? I got it. Alderperson Dorf, I'm good.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, there were two things that I wanted to speak to, and maybe I'll skip the second one. I'll mention it, but we'll hold it till we actually vote on this. But one of the things was that there have been referred at both of those planning commission meetings that studies, quote, have shown that there are lower crime rates in neighborhoods with facilities like this. And studies have shown that property values are impacted. Are they or not? Are there studies? Can staff, I mean, what's the data on this? And can we actually find a study? Because just somebody saying that there was a study, I want to see the study. I want to know what that study says. I'd like to make an informed decision based on data. The other piece of what maybe we can discuss next time, or we might want to discuss it now, is that Act 67 changed the rules a lot for us. And this is a recent act as far as our ability to deny. It used to be that the person coming forward had to prove, Director Vonk, perhaps you should explain Act 67. Would that be all right, Your Honor?
That's fine, I don't want to lose, I was at the same meetings you were, I don't want to lose your first thing. I was
Okay.
at meetings when they said,
Thank you.
when these shelters come in, crime goes down, property values go up. And we're sitting in the audience, because I'm not running those meetings, and we're like, wow, I didn't know that. And, well, the chairman of the planning commission should have asked a little tougher questions, but really, is that, if that's a fact, we're really interested in increasing property values and reducing crime. And if this indeed does that, that should be part of this presentation. Dr. Vaughn?
Sure. So as far as the studies go, there's not a lot out there about it. There's one study that shows some correlation between certain things in a neighborhood and property values. So it talked about, those having a negative impact, like cemeteries, homeless shelters, bad schools, dumps, those types of things. But it showed correlation and not causation. And so there's not a lot of research that has been done on, a longitudinal study of, you have a neighborhood, something comes in, and then what happens down the line. So in terms of kind of both sides of the story, whether they improve property values or decrease property values, there's just not a lot out there. And in a lot of cases, there's so much more that goes into property values when you talk about a single-family house, what it sells for. What it sells for is basically what your neighbor's house or somebody in the neighborhood sold their house for. I mean, and so there's a longer period track record of where that comes out. So in terms of the property values, there isn't conclusive causation research either way that would enable us to kind of make a decision one way or the other.
And what about crime?
I think the same thing with crime. It's also hard for us to look at, the type of facility, because you're not dealing technically with the same individuals at a type of facility that right, people that may have been staying at a facility on Jefferson Street may not necessarily be the same type of people or same individuals that are staying at a facility on Clay Street. I think one of the things that we did do, and I think I shared with Alder Galvin, I mean, is we pulled the police calls and look at, all right, what are the police calls for this facility, and is there anything that's outstanding? And based on our review, yeah, there's a higher number of police calls, but generally they're pretty much in the same lines with, I guess, the per unit number of police calls you'd get for a multifamily complex. And when you start to dig into the details of those calls, there was nothing that popped out to us in terms of anything, significant or very violent.
So then, my conclusion is that there really aren't any studies that I'm going to base anything on. I mean, there are other things to base a vote on, but it doesn't seem like there's any hard and fast studies either for or against. Raising property values, lowering property values, raising crime, lowering crime. There's really nothing.
It's very correct, and it's very hard to isolate. I mean, cities are dynamic. It's really hard to isolate that one, you can say one specific thing caused this specific thing with all the other things going on in the community.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wondered about part 2, about Act 67. I think it's really important that the alders that did not attend the meeting or didn't see it understand the certain legal obligations that puts on us. It also puts on us some obligation to look at setting precedent, because any decisions we make for this, we will need to make in the future. And we have to be very, very careful. I'm so glad the idea of holding this came up, because we have to make a decision, but we have to be careful. We will be setting some precedent. So I'd really like an explanation for all of the elders, and for me to hear yet again about this Act 67 and what obligation it puts on the city now.
Who wants you, me, you? Go ahead.
Just a little bit, because we did discuss this at our plan commission probably about 6-9 months ago. Act 67, which was passed last year, what it does essentially for a conditional use permit is it shifts the burden of proof from an applicant onto the city. And prior to this, if you wanted a conditional use permit, you basically had to come to your city and say, all right, I need a conditional use permit, and it's upon me to prove that I'm going to do a good job with this, and I'm going to meet the conditions, and this will not be a burden. This will not negatively impact the health, safety, welfare of the community. So me, as applicant, I have to prove to you, city, why I should get this. What Act 67 did is basically turn that 180 degrees and said, for somebody applying for a conditional use permit, you can come in and you're pretty much entitled to get that use permit, unless the city can now prove that you're going to, quote unquote, ruin the neighborhood or negatively impact health, safety, and welfare. And part of what they put in the legislation, I mean, was pretty straightforward. You can still put conditions onto a property, which I think we've done here, and we've done in a way that, relates to health, safety, welfare as best we can. But those conditions, it's very specific, have to be measurable. You have to be able to measure those conditions. So, you can go out and measure parking, you can go out and measure security camera. I mean, you have to be able to identify particular things. Those conditions can't be based on personal preferences or speculation. And I think that gets to the thing of, the what if, or what if, or what if. You can't base it on that. And so when you have no studies that say a direct correlation or direct causation of things, it's really hard for us to say, it could happen, but it may not happen. And you can't base conditions on that. And then the last part, which really is the tough part, is if an applicant satisfies these conditions, the city has to issue the CUP. And so, I mean, it's really important that you really think thoughtfully about those conditions, because legislation says, look, if the applicant meets those conditions, you have to give that person the CUP. And so one of the things we did after this legislation went through, it's probably like a routine action, for most of us here, but we actually took transitional houses out. They were conditional uses in almost all the districts across the city. And we took them out of all the residential districts, knowing that, look, that's something that we really need to have a discussion about. So they were still left as a condition in what this is, an OR district, and so that's why we're here. But I think Alder Dorf, you bring a important part about just how this transition. I think I've spoken with Alder Galvin, maybe we need to look at some other parts of our zoning code where things are conditional uses. We probably should look at them as pretty close to permitted uses. And while you can't totally exclude everything from your community, you have to really think about, all right, where are the appropriate places to do that? The other avenue is, right, going back to the state and saying, all right, you went maybe a little too far on this one, and retaining some local control about the decisions that are best for our community.
As a side note to that, I am working the latter part of that. I think the state took too much of our authority away. I've been meeting with our senators, our legislators, and you guys are gonna do what you want as a body, but that was wrong what they did. And we give a lot of conditional use permits here, but you give them, not the state.
Here, here.
So what legal ramifications are there if we do say no? We have to have reasons that are measurable, reasonable conditions, measurable conditions. There was a third, I can't remember what the third thing was, but
Just have to be related to health, safety, and welfare.
health, safety, and welfare. And we have to prove that health, safety, and welfare will be negatively impacted. We don't prove that, we have to issue the conditional use permit.
Correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Stoyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is for Director Vonk as well. So basically, if anyone requests a cup, is the city obligated to vote on it no matter what? I mean, is it, I guess in a sense, looking at this, it seems that our hands are tied locally, so I understand that. And Act 67, you talked about that, and I understand that. The mayor made his comments as well, so we understand that. But can anybody come forward with a cup request on some project, and the city is obligated to vote on it regardless?
Yes, so all CUPs run through Plan Commission, end up at council, so if in our zoning code, it's identified as a conditional use in that district, they go through a process and it ends up here. But I think as I described, it makes a lot, if you're going to say no, it makes it a lot harder to say no.
All right, I also wanted to ask, is there a time frame as far as the transformation house, making sure that all items in the cup are upheld? An actual time frame, or is it based on meetings with council and such?
I guess if you would decide to hold it and they're able to submit all those materials in a timely fashion before your next meeting, then it would be held until your next meeting or until they're able to provide those materials for your review.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any other lights on. Oh, no. You know? No, this light's not on, so. Yeah, your light's not on, but I'll recognize you. Alderman Scannell?
It's me, it's Randy. Thank you, Your Honor. I would just like to say that having New Community and St. John's and the Transformation House in my district from the get-go, homelessness was an issue, and I did do some homework on this. I'm not going to profess to be a scholar, but and yes, it's difficult to show causation, but a community that provides services is going to be a much healthier and vibrant community. That seems to be pretty borne out by many studies, that if you look at community that doesn't, they have many more problems. I think the problems we've had in the past with St. John's were that they were an emergency shelter and were dealing with people they should not have had to deal with. They were falling through the cracks. They were not getting the services they needed, and so they're on our streets where they should not be, and that's a problem. So we need places like St. John's and New Community and the Transformation House if we're going to have a healthy community, which will affect property values, crime, the whole works. So, yes, it's tough to prove causation, but they have a number of studies I've looked at look at places that provide services and those don't. And yeah, there's a difference. Is it proof causation? Well, there's so many variables. How can you actually say that? But there does appear to be, if you provide the services, you have a healthier, more vibrant community. So I support this, and I guess it doesn't matter if we do the cup now or later. I think Transformation will also have no problem filling these obligations one way or the other. So if we do it now or later, I'm fine either way. Thank you.
So what is this? Is this to hold until the conditions are met? You get the floor again. Let's get this thing going. I think we're ready to vote.
All right, so we're adding in background checks, the process to be approved by the Green Bay Police Department to show on-site planning, that they will have adequate parking. Also added in a quarterly report on calls for police services at the facility. Take out of the operation plan any reference to soup kitchen, and that the cup would be voted on by council once all the checks are done that we're asking for. And from there, then it would go to, he would move forward certification for occupancy.
So that's the motion on the floor. And that's motion by Alderman Galvin, second by Alderman Stoyer, and that is the list of things he mentioned. We're gonna hold the issuance of the CUP until those conditions are met. Anybody else? Want to use the board? This is holding this item until the conditions in the CUP are met, as stated by the alderman. Whoa. That doesn't always work. Here, take that off. Okay, you guys want to vote in front of everybody? Sorry, I hit. That, I've come close to, that's 16. If I do it now, will it be good? Is it every year you go?
Oh, this
I'm on my dental, I'm on my.
Two more. Who's the two?
Yeah, I know, but it's not on here.
Okay, Randy Scannell, you need to vote, Alderman Scannell?
I've got nothing here to vote on.
We were doing so good.
Voice vote.
Can I take your voice vote on this? All right. Oh, man. Okay. This is something I won't miss. There we go. We're good. All right, and that passes on a vote of 11-1, so we'll be holding this item for further notice. Okay, clerk.
Let's see. Report of the Park Committee, February 27th, 2019.
Park, okay, what are your wishes regarding the report of the Park Committee? There's a motion by Alderman Nicholson.
What about finance?
Yeah, I think we had finance.
Did we? What about finance?
We have P.
Oh, sorry.
Should I take a break or should we go?
P.
Can we pull this thing out? I gotta go to the bathroom, but I got 15 minutes, man. Can we get this done in 15 minutes? Okay, let's go.
Okay.
P.
Report of the
Of all
Finance
reports,
Committee.
P. Go ahead.
Okay. Report of the Finance Committee, February 26, 2019.
This is
What are your wishes regarding the report of the Finance Committee? This motion by Alderman Scannell.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Dorff to approve the report of the Finance Committee. That was for their meeting held on February 26th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? 3 and 4. Okay. Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it, and all items have been approved with the exception of 3 and 4. What are your wishes regarding item 3? So motion to approve by Alderman Scannell,
Second.
second by Alderman Stevens, to approve item 3, which is to move the City Hall project elevators forward. Alderman Scannell.
Thank you, Your Honor. This was in the INS. It was forwarded without a recommendation, and I watched the video, and I appreciate halters wanting to prioritize and focusing on roads. Yes, that's a great need. But this elevator has been kicked down the road and kicked down the road, and we're finally addressing it. It's been long overdue. It's broken down. It's broken down, and with people in it, it's a liability. It's not gonna get any cheaper fixing it. I mean, it's been bid and rebid. It's time to get this done. So I make a motion that we approve that we amend the INS motion to approve. And
Just, you can take it up on finance. You understand, we borrowed.
I was
what,
told I had to
500
do both.
$500,000 to fix these elevators?
Right.
430, went out for bids, they came back at like $1 million.
Yeah.
So you would take that 480, we're asking, this is at finance, Alderman, because we need the money.
Right,
So
right.
we're looking to bond an additional
Right.
570,000.
But it was also in INS that we needed to put the two together. We put the two together, remember?
The
Right.
INS agenda
And at-
item is to award.
Yeah, that
And in INS, we need to amend that one to
should, yeah,
to approve.
you're right. I just didn't want to approve something without the money, so that's why it's here. So
Oh,
if you
right, yes.
approve this, I will amend INS to show that we approve the bid.
Okay.
So,
All right.
do you have anything else you want to say about this?
Just that, elevators, they're very uplifting until they bring you down.
All right,
Don't recognize him anymore.
your 10 minutes is up.
It's true.
Anyone else want to speak to this? All right, you're going to use the board on this. This is item 3 under the report of Finance Committee. It's to approve the request, City Hall elevators, and bond an additional $570,000 in 2019. Alderman Vanderleest and Alderman Scannell.
No, I got nothing. Yeah, we're on the same line. Aye. No, it's okay.
So Randy, you're a yes?
We don't want you to vote.
Aye?
Yeah, both of mine.
Okay. All right, so that passes on a vote of 9-3. Now, what are your wishes regarding item 4? 4 is to have the staff proceed as directed in closed session. The
Wait, Mayor, we need to finish the INS item first.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at.
Okay,
You ruined it with your joke.
Yeah.
you brought us down. I said that by approving this funding, we approved the bid, because I wasn't going to approve a bid without the funding. But do you want to,
Well, I thought that's what we had to do.
We just need to make it clear that the bid has been awarded.
Move to approve.
The
Can
bid.
I-
given,
To approve the bid.
given the action on item 3, we also approve the bid for the elevators?
I like that. I make that motion.
There's a motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Weary. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Okay, we're on to item 4. Item 4 is to have the staff proceed as directed in closed session regarding the BIA. So there's a motion by Alderman Scannell,
Second.
second by Alderman Dorf. How do you want to handle this? You want to go into closed session? Do you know what staff was directed to do?
Ms. Jesse.
Alderman Burnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to enter into closed session.
Second?
Now if you'll read why.
Oh, yes. Council may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.851G Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.852 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
All right, so this is, there was a motion and a second to go into closed session for the reasons stated by the Alderman. If you use the board on this, I vote we'll move into closed session. No vote will stay here.
Oh, I got it now.
Let's see, I'm gonna vote no.
You want me to go to bed?
No,
That's fine.
Yeah, let it go. Yeah, I don't need this shit. It's a hot potato.
It's only sit next to you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to return to regular order. Order by Nicholson, second by Alderman Scannell. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. There's discussion in closed session on how to proceed regarding some pending properties that the Oneidas would like to put into trust. And I think we should use the board and vote on that. Those who think we should contest these 5 properties going into trust would vote yes. Those who think we should not contest the 5 properties should vote no. So a yes vote, we would continue to contest this and incur some legal fees. Huh?
I was the only one that came up?
No, mine did.
Still in the elevator?
Okay, never mind.
Came up.
All right, so that decision by the council is a 6-6 vote to contest these properties. I'm going to vote aye on that, that we continue the course we're on until we can really come up with some meaningful negotiation. And we'll use the money from our contingency fund to continue this course. And Vanessa will update the finance committee at its next regular meeting. Okay, clerk?
We're on to report of the Park Committee, February 27th, 2019.
There's a motion by Alderman Nicholson.
I just wanted to ask one question.
I need a second. Second by Alderman Scannell to approve the report of the Park Committee for the meeting held on February 27th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Item 3. Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. What are your wishes regarding item 3?
Motion to approve.
Motion
Second.
approved by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderperson Dorf. Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dan, I just had a quick question on this. There's 3 properties along Gray Street, and one of these is the one that's in question. The other 2 properties, what's the status on those, or is that?
Yeah, currently, they're still all under private ownership, and the city will look at purchasing them as the opportunities arise, but we're not looking at it right now.
Not at this time. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve item 3. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. Item 3 has now been approved. We're on to Report R, which is the report of the Personnel Committee. What are your wishes regarding this report? It's a motion to approve by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderperson LaFave. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. The ayes have it. Report R has been approved.
Report of the Public Arts Commission, February 27th, 2019.
All right, there's a motion by Alderman Randy Scannell,
Second.
second by Alderperson Craig Stevens to approve the report of the Public Arts Commission, Report S, for the meeting held on February 27th. Any items in this report you wish to handle separately?
Number 2.
Number 2. Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. All items have been approved with the exception of item 2. What are your wishes regarding item 2?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Alderperson Dorf, second by Alderperson Scannell. Alderman Galvin?
I'm just wondering, $300 for a boat race, arts? I'm trying to grab the correlation there. Unless I'm misreading this, but $300 to the Boys and Girls Club for the Dragon
Okay,
boat
maybe
races.
our chief of staff can comment on that. She sits on public arts.
Oh, I thought Randy did.
I did, but I missed the meeting.
All right, sorry.
Alderperson,
I'm sorry.
From a while ago.
from a while ago.
Yes, Alder Galvin, the Boys and Girls Club, the Dragon Boat Race is a fundraiser, and what they intend to do is to have a music event, and so the Public Arts Commission funds performing, visual, as well as humanities.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. All right, so there's a motion, a second to approve item 2. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Item 2 has been approved. We're on to Report T, the report of the Sustainability Commission. Motion approved by Alderman Scannell, seconded by Alderman Craig Stevens. Any items here? What would you like to discuss here? Alderman Weary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question would be for Attorney Chavez. At this point, what is the city's obligation? Are we obligated to anything as far as what they're putting in writing so far? Randy, do you want to sing?
Can we do a duet?
Sure.
He wasn't at the meeting. Right, Vanessa's good, she's reading the report. He wasn't at the meeting.
No, he wanted to sing.
I was just getting in camera, just.
The thing just disappeared. Just left. Where do you go? I'm gonna have to look again.
I would hope not.
And I wanted to just point out, some of the goals in there are, obviously very good, but some of them, the 100% renewable goal, I think really should be where reasonable and cost effective, and that's really doesn't come across if you look at the meetings. It's pretty much 100% or nothing. That's the goal, and I think it needs to be where reasonable and cost effective. And so if there's gonna be something going back to that committee, they need to, I'm not gonna sign on the dotted line that forces us to do things that do not make sense economically.
Yeah, I mean.
But if you read what they're putting forward, we're kind of signing on to it. We're saying, yep, looks good so far, looks good so far, looks good so far. And I just want to make sure.
We love renewable energy, but at what price?
Well, right. I mean, we should always be looking for that, but not.
So, I don't know that they would have that authority, quite honestly.
So, a couple things. When I'm looking at this, there isn't anything in here that gives me pause as far as imposing obligations upon the city. More importantly, I am trying to find it right now, but I am 98% sure that the commission is advisory only.
Okay. Okay, that's what I thought. I know that there was talk that they'll bringing forward some policy and ordinance type things, but, so we can wait for that discussion later. But they need to also look at maybe a little bit more realistic approach too. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So, we have a motion second to approve item T. Okay, Alderperson LaFave.
think if Alder Weary looked at G, F and G, it actually states that. They're talking about, actually G says, the policy recommendation recommends to meet the scientific needs with consideration to the economic realities. They're talking about the turnaround. Certain things, you don't want to do certain things, even if it's green or whatever, if you don't have the turnaround, 10 years or so, you have to have the money back for what you're doing. And I think that's exactly what it's stating here, that they want to make sure that we're not throwing money just away. It's got to be done right.
10
That's my
years-
take on
10
it.
years is debatable. Okay, so we have a motion second to approve item T. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. All right, we're on to referral and petitions, communications. Chris, you wanna? Okay, I don't have my lights on. Could you just tell me who's?
John and
Okay, we'll begin with Alderman John Vanderleest.
Lake Communication requests that the City of Green Bay Sustainability Commission Renewable Energy Work Plan be referred to the Finance Committee and Finance Director to review costs. In other words, if it goes that far, as what the cost would incur.
Thank you. That will be referred. Who else? Huh?
Yeah.
Alderman Stoyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. I've got several here. One's to the water utility to report out on payment scenarios for water bills to apartment renters. This next one is protection and policy, to have the police department report on strategies and resources dealing with the human trafficking issue in Green Bay. Next one is the Landmarks Commission, to report on the status of the city of Green Bay obtaining certified local government status. And lastly, the community development, to report out on the number of units of housing in Green Bay with respect to single-family, two-family, and multifamily, and what percentages of total housing in Green Bay that they represent. Thank you.
That report's available.
Okay.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
We'll refer, I need a motion and a second to refer all petitions and communications to the proper authority. Motion, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And now,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Alderman Nicholson, second by Alderman Stoyer. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We're adjourned.
3 hours and 1 minute. Not bad. Well,
All right.
I thought it was good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hours of that.
Well, I knew it was gonna be that. I didn't think it was gonna be that. Well, you thought maybe a little less. Well, I don't know, I thought.